please turn down your volume? Hello, hello. Over.
To kind of have them all over you.
Exactly. Yeah. Makes me happy.
How are you feeling?
Pretty good. I don't think I could keep like an animal alive, like a dog or a cat, but I seem to be able to keep plants alive, so that's good.
I'm the opposite. I always have a really hard time with plants, but I've done relatively well with animals. So at least I think Bailey thinks so. And I've done okay with her. She's still here. She's still alive. So, but yeah, I literally seeing those plants, it just makes me realize how much I miss outside.
Yeah, I know. It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm getting outside a little bit just to walk Bailey with Derek. And then we've been working out in our backyard area. So
That's
that's
good.
been nice just to feel a little bit of sun. Today's kind of gloomy, so haven't really been out. So I'm feeling all cozy in my turtleneck. But yeah, things are good.
Good.
When's the last time you went to the store?
Oh my gosh.
Like, what's the update there?
It's been like I probably haven't gone in over a week.
Yeah, it's been about a week for us too.
Mm.
Yeah, and I feel like it's different every time you go. I mean, other than the fact that there's still no paper products every time you go, so everyone's still in panic mode about that. And
Are people not washing their plates? Like I don't understand why all like the paper
it's
plates and stuff are gone.
Yeah, it's all the paper stuff. It's not just toilet paper and paper towels. Yeah, all the paper stuff. And then, like, the last time we went to Bristol, they weren't allowing reusable bags, which,
Oh, yeah.
like, I get, but at the same time, I kind of liked because I kind of liked because I knew where my bags had been. So I had been using them instead of the basket.
Hmm.
So I was giving that as a tip to people, and then that option went away. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But
I actually, so when this whole thing started, I stopped taking my reusable bags, but I had a couple of just the brown bags that I had had from Whole Foods
mhm,
or something. So I was bringing those back and forth because I was like, when this whole thing is done, those are just going in the
yeah,
trash.
no, absolutely.
So, yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
been crazy. I went to the store last week and it was funny, like still all of the chips are gone, all of like the frozen pizzas are gone, all of the like, gummies and candies and like all that was gone, but fully stocked, vegetables and fruits and nuts and like all that kind of stuff. Which
I
is
knew we were going to get into this today because it's crazy to me. And I can't even blame it on, when I talk to people about eating organic and eating whole foods, I do understand that not everyone has the money to eat organic. Like that's one thing. But I don't understand when you go into a store like Bristol Farms or Whole Foods when obviously people are not shopping there who don't have the means to buy organic food and it's still all the processed food is gone, but
right.
you still have meat and fruits and vegetables.
Which I think is, and I have a couple ideas on why I think that is that we can talk about, but it's really fascinating to me to walk into those places and understand the psychology of kind of what's going on. And I'm from New York, so I have a lot of friends who are either in New York City right now, which is obviously really hard hit. And so they're checking in. They know I'm in healthcare, so we're making sure everybody's okay. A lot of my friends and family are still in upstate New York, and so they're sending me photos of their grocery stores and they're running out of food and things there. And everyone's asking me like, "Are you okay? Can you get enough?" And I'm like, I'm fine because the stuff that I eat normally is still in stock. Like
Right.
I don't buy frozen pizzas. I don't buy pasta and like tons of rice and stuff. So, when I go, the cashiers are always like, "Did you find everything okay?" And there's one time I was like, "I wanted sour cream." He's like, oh, like all of our dairy's out. We're getting a dairy truck tomorrow. I was like, I'll live without sour cream. But yeah, everything else on my list was fine. Um, and it was funny, a couple weeks ago when this whole thing started in LA, I had come off of a 5-day fast. So the Thursday that everyone like went crazy at the stores, that first day was the first day that I was eating off of a 5-day fast. And so I went into Whole Foods just to get food. So I'm like fasting, and my body is already in this a little bit, like fight or flight, like fasting kind of a thing. And so I
Yes.
go in and I'm like, oh my God, there's no food. My body's like, there's really no food. There's really no food. So that was an interesting feeling. But I got plenty of food. It was fine. But I walked up and down the Whole Foods, and it was the big Whole Foods next to the campus, that one on Wilshire. And again, like all of the pastas, the soup, everything was gone. But the one aisle that wasn't even touched was like the protein powder aisle. Like all of the protein powders were still there. And I was like, that, like, you just add water and that could be a meal, you know?
Right. Well, and it's not even like, yeah, like that's something that keeps. Like, I kind of understand how some people are like, well, what if I go to the store and I don't come out for 2 months? Although that's not what I'm seeing. Like, I'm seeing people are going about once a week, you know? Um, but for people who are like, okay, I'm going to stay in my house, I have to get things that keep. Um, it's still interesting to me because like protein powder will keep. That's just a much healthier option than, like you said, like a frozen pizza or chips or
And it's
yeah, chips are the
nutritionally
only thing we've
dense.
had a hard time getting because we love these like blue corn chip. We're like highly specific with the only snack foods we have. So blue corn chips, organic, are like the only thing that we do, and that's been out. But yeah, everything else is there. You know, we've had a couple difficulties with eggs, again, like the eggs that we want.
Right.
Um, but it's really kind of interesting to me, like the choices that people are making, and then like still having the same concerns of their immune system, and that they're stressed. And like, if we're really thinking of food as medicine and we're really trying to have some type of control over our health, our mental emotional state, like all of that, um, yeah, like it's just it's baffling to me because I don't think there's like a lack of information out there, which I think is what's even more confusing to me. Because we were talking about this the other day, you and I, about how like it's almost like an overload of information. Like we get it, like, okay, we're both doctors, we can both help with your immune system. That's absolutely something you should be doing right now. Everybody's trying to figure out how they can continue to bring value to people. So it's not as though nobody's talking about how eating healthy affects these things.
Right.
So what do you think about that? Like, why do you think people are still making these choices?
Honestly, okay, so I might be very wrong in this, but the people that I've talked to, there's a few components. One, I think people were a little bit in denial about what was happening, and so they
Mm,
didn't necessarily want to think of, this is what I'm going to need to survive, and they wanted to have the fun things. They wanted to say like, okay, I have to stay inside. I can't go see my friends. That makes me a little sad. Like, I want comfort food. I want fun food. I'm going to use this as an opportunity or as a time to, you know, enjoy myself and like treat myself and, um, not restrict myself because that might make me emotionally feel more distraught about a situation that I already feel distraught about.
mm-hmm.
And so as humans, we're programmed to want and to crave sugar, salt, and fat, right? Like those three things we're designed to want to have. And so I think that a lot of people are either consciously or unconsciously turning towards comfort foods and saying, okay, I can't control this situation. I can't control what's going on. I can't control my job. I can't control these other things. So they are choosing to get enjoyment from food, and they're kind of allowing themselves to, they're giving themselves more leeway than maybe they would in other situations.
I think also you touched on something that I want to expand on, like this idea that people weren't accepting or like willing to accept this is going to go longer. Like I know even for me when it was first like, oh, okay, all non-essential businesses are closing and all of these things are changing. Um I was still like taking time to get into a structure and I kind of felt like it was like a Saturday. Like we're at home, so we're going to order food out and we're going to watch TV and and then I was like, wait a second, no, it's not the weekend every day. We have to figure out a new structure. So what is that structure going to look like?
Mhm.
Because if I was buying for the weekend and my downtime, it would look very different than my like 85% of my time, throughout the entire week. So I think, like you said, like people were kind of looking at this as like, okay, well, what would I do if I were hanging out at home for a couple days or, had a few days off?
A
And that
lot.
looks very different, like very different than something sustainable for the new level of normal that we're all experiencing.
And also, a patient of mine, she works for some part of the government, and she trains people on earthquake preparedness. And so
Hmm.
when this whole thing started, I talked to her, and she was like, people don't understand the difference between preparing for an earthquake and preparing for a pandemic. They just know like prepare. And so I think that's part of the reason, she thinks that's part of the reason people stocked up on like toilet paper and water, because in an earthquake, if the municipal stuff is shut down, water pipes are bursting, yeah, you need to stock up on those things. And that's kind of what they talk about in their earthquake preparedness. And so she's like,
Hmm.
people just went, especially here in California, people just kind of like went into that mindset a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think people kind of thought this is an extended, 4-day weekend. And,
Hmm.
you know, okay, there's a bunch of Netflix that I've been wanting to binge. So what do? You have snacks, you have pizza, you
Right.
allow yourself to do these things to get through that period, and then you're like, then I go back to normal life, right? We see this with people who are making like New Year's resolutions and all those types of things. There's
Hmm.
people allow themselves that like periodicity, right? It's like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna let myself do it for this long, and it's just become longer and longer. So I think it's really really interesting.
Do you think that will shift? Like I'm definitely seeing this shift in my patient base. So like initially, I'm only treating really emergent people in office and then doing telemedicine. And I had some patients who were like, "Oh no, I'm just going to wait until, this blows over and then I'm going to come back for my twice a week acupuncture." And now patients are like, "Okay, no, but I really need you. So what can we do on telemedicine?"
Right.
And it did take a few weeks for that switch to kind of start. And so I'm wondering like how that's going to play out with all of this stuff with like the choices people are making with foods and with hoarding different things and
Yeah.
like are when do you think that shift's going to happen where people start to see like, oh no, this is actually life right now and I'm going to have to do something a little more sustainable.
Honestly, I think when we keep hearing from people in power, like politicians and people like that, when they keep saying, okay, it's going to be in 3 weeks, right? So it's already through the end of the month.
Hmm.
I think people are like, okay, cool, I can get through the end of the month, and then things are going to go back to normal. And if they don't, which there's a possibility that they won't, I think people are going to say, oh my gosh, it's already been 6 weeks. There's no way it can go that much longer. I've held on this long. Like I'm just going to continue. So I think the best thing for people to do is just say, okay, you know, for the next 3 weeks, what should I have my new normal routine be, and not just let this continue through the next 3 weeks, because we know for sure it's the next 3 weeks.
Right. I think you're right. I think it's really easy to be like, oh, it's only a couple weeks. Let's just like play this out. But we need to anticipate that things are not going to go 100% back to normal, even if it, or it's not a lot of like quarantine and stay at home and, businesses are starting to reopen. There are still going to be so many changes that we're experiencing. So it's not going to be as it was. So even if it's different than it is now in a few weeks and we're not forced to stay home, it's not going back. And so we still have to be a little more fluid with our decisions and know that we have to be developing sustainable habits because we don't know how long, this is going to go on for.
Right. Other coping mechanisms, other coping
Yeah.
strategies.
Yeah. Which is kind of it's not an exciting time, but it's a very important time to be diving into how do we cope. That's something I think we should be kind of dealing with in our day-to-day life in general. And now we're kind of being forced to see how we cope with things. And I think that's calling out a lot of things for people. And like you said, that idea of wanting comfort and not having a lot of options as far as our normal, vices or coping mechanisms, then it's like, oh, well, what can I have to cope? What can I control? Oh, I can buy this stuff from the store.
Right. I can enjoy. Oh, I never let myself have this thing. I'm going to be gentle with myself, which we do. We need to, right? It's like sometimes people's anxiety can get the best of them. But to really be mindful of, now that we're through the initial kind of shock, I think, of
Mm-hmm.
what it was a couple weeks ago, to start planning what is your strategy for the next 3 to 6 weeks. Like you said, it's not going to just all of a sudden go back to normal. And so a friend of mine said, everyone's going to come out of this sore. It's either you're going to be sore from sitting on the couch and binge watching Netflix, or you're going to be sore because you took this time to, do a workout routine and get your body back in shape and do some of those things that maybe you didn't have time to do because you were working so much, or, sitting in traffic for 2 hours a day, those types of things.
Or like, let's take that even one step further with what we mean by you're going to come out of this store. From like higher level thinking, the idea is like, okay, you're either going to come out of this feeling like battered and bruised because you didn't figure it out and you were just like, crap, like, I lost my job or my job changed or things are different. I'm not making the money I was. Or you're going to be stretching some new muscles as far as how are we making changes in my business? How are we being innovative? How are we implementing new things? How are we reigniting an old passion that we had that we now feasibly have time for? And either way, like none of that change is comfortable and it's not easy. I don't know anyone, even people who love being at home, even people who still are making money from their jobs. Like, there's no one who's like, oh, well, this is like easy and simple. And like, I could just live like this forever. There's still those growing pains that are coming with that. So, yeah, everyone's going to come out of the store, and how you decide to utilize those muscles during this time is going to dictate what that looks like.
Right. Absolutely.
Any tips you have for people at this time? Like, what are you seeing from your patients, things that have been beneficial for people? Anything you want to say before we close it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for a lot of people, just staying present, right? Like the anxiety and watching the news, right? They're watching 20 different news sources. They're all contradicting each other. And the thing I tell everybody is, if anyone tells you they know for sure what's happening, they're lying, right? Like, other than the government saying, like, this is what we're mandating you do, if anyone says, like, we know how long this virus comes, we know, like, what's going to happen,
Derek's
we know
over
the
here
people,
laughing. He loves this.
they're like, whoever, if anyone tells you they know for 100% sure, they're
No,
full
it's so true.
of it. So that is the one thing I keep telling my patients. I'm like, if they're like, this person said this is for sure happening, I'm like, well, you can take comfort to know that they're lying.
Yeah.
That it's going to happen, but for sure they don't know for sure. That's the one thing I know. Nobody knows for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I tell my patients, and they laugh. And I think using laughter in this time, but really critically evaluate what people are telling you.
Yeah, I
That's
think that's important because I think a lot of times this is something my dad used to say, the worst things in my life never happened. And it's like, yeah, we spend so much time worrying about the potential X, Y, and Z and the potential implications and what could happen or what I heard from somebody that could possibly happen. But my goodness, all of that energy that you just put into the stress of the possibility of something and being so sure that you know something when like there is some comfort and just like, look, we're all kind of in this together that we don't know 100%. And let's control the controllables, control what we're putting in our mouths, controlling what we're feeding our senses and what we're doing on a day to day is it's like the best anybody can do.
really, it is. Yeah.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, it was awesome talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for popping on.
Maybe this is a new thing. This is my
I
first.
know.
This is my first Instagram live. So maybe this is
I love
something that I
it.
can do.
Yeah, I've been doing them daily because, I think we all have value we can offer. Everybody's on their screens anyway. So let's talk about it. We're all in this together and all have things we can be doing to make the world a better place. But yeah, this could be the new thing.
Love it.
And if you guys did not catch our podcast, you can go to the link in my link tree, and then we'll be eventually putting out the videos and short form of that. But Dr. Bender and I did do a podcast together, so you can find the Be Well with Dr. Nell podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, but there's a link in my bio. So thanks everybody, and thank you, Dr. Bender,
For
and we will talk
chatting.
soon.
Talk soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye.